And we're live, and it's 10 o'clock. Very good. Right. So, welcome back. Welcome if you are new. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm coming out with content just about every day, pretty much. I've got like 3 or 4 topics bouncing around in my head right now, all of which are absolutely critical. None of which is critical, of course, because nobody cares, but it's still messages that I think should be out there. And I'm here to do the difficult part that no one seems to be willing to do, except for this guy. Today, I want to talk about Wim Carton. I don't know what his nationality is. He wrote a book, apparently, called Overshoot, and he gave a video presentation. I put the information in the description of this video, and I got to put my glasses back on. The name of the channel where the video was offered 7 days ago is called SSN Info. Small channel, 500 subscribers, and the title is SSN Seminar, Climate Politics When It's Too Late with Wim Carton. Again, it's all in the description. This is probably one of the most important videos I watched in a long time. And I watch a lot of videos on climate change and global heating. My wife watches a lot of them, and we watch them together. And this comes close to being as important as something by Kevin Anderson. Kevin Anderson is a climatologist that I never pass up one of his videos, never pass up one of his seminars. He just goes at it. He's like me. He's a savage. He's an absolute animal, and he just goes at it. And he has been super, super critical of the IPCC process since about report 5. And he and I are generally in agreement on a lot of the problems. And there's a couple of things I disagree with him on, but his points are good. So Kevin Anderson, you've probably heard of him. And if you haven't, then you should go check him out. But right now I want to talk about this guy. Wim Carton and climate politics when it's too late. Now, I don't like to talk about politics, but because I think politicians are assholes. I think politicians are criminals at this point for what they've done to us. But that's what he's talking about. He's not talking about politics like, oh, let's elect Joe Biden, let's elect Donald Trump. He's talking about basically the criminality of what politicians have been engaging in since the 70s. Knowing what they know and working for who they work for, the usual gang of idiots, right? So he published a book, and it's called the book is called Overshoot, and this talk is about his book. He pulls material from his book in here. I need to put a caveat on this real quick, because as soon as this came across my feed, I saw climate politics when it's too late. I thought, oh yeah, I got to watch this. But when I saw the title of his book called Overshoot, I thought, that's going to be a problem for people that are my age and maybe really anybody over 50. The book and the talk is basically Overshoot, but it's not about limits to growth and Malthusian dynamics or things like that. It's not about population overshoot. It's about the overshoot that Kevin Anderson alluded to. And he first turned me on to this back in IPCC 5 days, a decade ago, right? And the type of overshoot that's being talked about here is climate overshoot. And it's complicated. And this whole talk today is going to be complicated. I seldom go into all the warm, fuzzy things like coral bleaching and the penguins and the polar bears and the indigenous peoples. And, I just don't, I care about those things, but in my world, I have one problem. I am laser focused on one problem. And I'm focused on this one problem because I'm an engineer and I understand the problem. I'm focused on this problem because I'm a scientist and I understand the science behind the problem. And it's backbreaking. And I focus on this problem because I'm a biologist. I understand the problem. And the problem is global heating. It's physics. It's not politics. It's not economics. It's not spirituality. It's not navel gazing. It's not, t- traveling to Australia to see the last of the coral before they go extinct. Okay, I'm not focusing on those things. I'm focusing on the physics. Physics, physics, physics. Okay, I know it's not warm and fuzzy. I know it's not accessible. I know it sounds clinical and dry and heartless, but that's your problem, people. That's your problem. You're on the Titanic and your Titanic has hit the iceberg. And now gravity wins. Okay, that's the kind of problem we're having right now. Gravity is about to win. And the equivalent of that in this discussion is physics is about to win. Physics is winning. And this planet is getting hot and we're going to go under. We're going down. We're just going to go down. We're going to go beneath the waves. That's it. We're done. We're finished. And you can be as optimistic as you want to be. But hey, right now on this channel, in this room, I'm the engineer. I'm the scientist. And I'm telling you, you have no basis for optimism. You have no basis for optimism. If you're optimistic, then you need to just back away from that for a minute and take a good look. And this guy's talking about overshoot, not population overshoot. He's talking about climate overshoot. And what Kevin Anderson pointed out very, very succinctly was that the IPCC reports of late have been, because it's a government process, the G in government, the IPCC process is not an international, it's intergovernmental. Okay, the I in IPCC is not international. It's intergovernmental. It's about the governments. They are running this thing. And many of those governments are fossil fuel exporting nations. And many of the ones that aren't exporting fossil fuels are consuming them. And all of these governments are part of the global economic system. And they're all dependent on fossil fuels, either in the sales or the consumption or both, right? So that's the situation. And the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has a built-in problem. It has a built-in problem, and that's governments. Built-in problem. And Kevin Anderson pointed that out. And he pointed out before this book came out, Overshoot, Kevin Anderson was the one pointing out that the IPCC process, driven by the governments, when it talks about, oh, well, we will eventually be at 2 degrees C above baseline, and that's our target with the Paris Climate Accords. And the Paris Climate Accords, we're going to hold our temperature increase to 2 degrees C optimistically. And what they don't tell you is, and you have to go read the IPCC reports or listen to Kevin Anderson or listen to this guy, Wim Carton. What the IPCC was actually going to do was they were going to overshoot. They were allowing the Earth dynamic system to accumulate CO2 to a point where it exceeds not only 2.0, but 3 or 4 or even 5. And then their target was the year 2100, when they were going to do something, some magic, hand waving unicorns, rainbows, to draw down the CO2 to get the temperature back to 2.0 by the year 2100. They were going to overshoot. And then they were going to use a miracle of some kind to draw that CO2 back down. We're going to burn carbon dioxide. We're going to burn fossil fuels. We're going to emit the CO2. We're going to enhance the greenhouse effect. We're going to hit 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0 above baseline. Forget the 2.0. That's not their goal. Their goal is to overshoot. And then somehow through a miracle, and it is literally an appeal to magic. It is at this point a literal appeal to magic. Something is going to happen, hand wave, and then we'll come back down to 2.0. That was the goal. That was always the goal. It was never to go to 2.0 and stop. It was always, we're going to exceed and we'll draw down to 2.0 in 100 years. And that's what Wim Carton is writing about in his book, Overshoot. He's not talking about 8,000 million people, a population overshoot. He's not talking about overshooting our resource consumption. He's not talking about any of those kinds of overshoots. That's 70s thinking, 80s thinking. He's talking about the IPCC report and the Paris Climate Accords, which allow for us to overshoot in temperature. Not stop at 2, not stop at 3, stop somewhere way above all that, and then do a miracle thing and draw down CO2 to reduce the greenhouse effect, to reduce the temperature of the planet, to come down to 2.0 as a goal. That's the goal. in the year 2100 to come back to 2.0 after a shit show happens, after the dumpster fire, after whatever is going to happen to us when we exceed all these goals that they're setting for us, after all the terrible things have happened, after the penguins are extinct, after the polar bears are gone, after all the ice has melted on the planet and the sea levels have risen by 270 feet, after all that has happened, then we'll come back to 2.0 as a goal by the year 2100 or maybe after. That's what they're talking about. That's what they're setting us up for. And that's why I titled this video, we're going to continue to make money until everyone is dead, because that's essentially what they're talking about. They got their head completely up their ass. Not really, because they know what they're doing. They're going to continue to make money, and they're going to make money until the year 2100, because that's when they're saying they're going to save us from global heating and climate change. And that's when we're going to hit our goals, our Paris climate goals of 2.0. The year 2100. After exceeding them by who knows how much, some X value. Maybe we'll hit 5, maybe we'll hit 6, maybe we'll hit 10. And that's what James Hansen thinks. We're just going to go straight through 4 and 5, go right to 10. And by the time the year 2100 comes around, not only will we not be at 2.0, we'll be at 10.0. And then, of course, most of us are dead. Simple as that. I don't know how else to say it, folks. Most of us will be dead. Now, anyone watching this video on the day it's made or for any several years after, you'll be dead of natural causes, most likely. But we is the future. Our kids, our grandkids, whatever, our great grandkids, they'll all be dead. So that these people can continue to make money on the way to that. They will be making money. And it's a harsh reality. It's very difficult to swallow this. It's very difficult for me to sit here and say, yeah, that's what they've got planned. Holy smokes. So the book Overshoot is about what they have planned. And it's based on basically the IPCC reports. And it's been reported before by people like Kevin Anderson and by me. I've been on here all the time saying they're not going to stop. So what's my recommendation? That they're not going to stop. If they're not going to stop, then your plan, your actual strategy is to get to the lifeboats. The captain on the Titanic didn't stop. He was hell-bent for leather to get to New York ahead of schedule and make a record-breaking run on the maiden voyage of the Titanic. And he didn't stop, and he didn't slow down, and he didn't swerve, and he didn't do anything, and he hit the fucking iceberg. And in his own mind, he was thinking maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he wouldn't hit an iceberg. And it said, everyone told him that the Titanic was unsinkable anyway, right? So what does that mean? Maybe you get unlucky and you hit an iceberg. Okay, well, fine. Then we'll go to New York, but we'll a little slower after that. We'll hit the iceberg, then we'll go slower. We won't quite make a record run across the North Atlantic to get to New York. But if we don't hit the iceberg, look what happened. I'm famous. And the Titanic is famous. And everybody wants to book a ticket on the Titanic, and we're going to go back and forth across the North Atlantic in record time every single time. And maybe even next time will be faster. They didn't care. He just didn't give a fuck. The captain of the Titanic gave no fucks. And the people who have set us up with the IPCC and the Paris Climate Accords and the goals of 1.5 and 2.0 and all this stuff, they're planning overshoot. It's right there in the report. Kevin Anderson was saying it 10 years ago. He was saying, look what they're doing. Look at what they're actually doing. I know the summary to policymakers doesn't say any of that. I know the media, when they covered the report, didn't say any of that. But go to page 802 and look at what they're saying. They're going to overshoot. They're going to overshoot because they don't give a fuck. They're going to overshoot. They're going to make money while they can. They're going to keep the economy going along while they can. They can't break anything. They can't slow down. They can't impact the GDP. They can't give up on fossil fuels. They're going to burn the fossil fuels. They're going to make the money. They're going to grow the economy. They're going to have the jobs. They're going to have the GDP, and they're going to do all these things, and they're going to overshoot. And then sometime in the future, somebody who I guess is thinking differently, really? Someone who doesn't think that way anymore? Like, who is that going to be? Someone who doesn't think the way they think right now about money and jobs and growth and biggering and fastering. Somebody who now doesn't want to run the Titanic across the North Atlantic as fast as they can go. That person 70 years from now will fix it for them? That person, that mythical unicorn, what, Jesus? I mean, what are we talking about? Jesus is going to descend from heaven, come to earth, and solve this? How the hell? Yeah, that's what they're thinking. They're going to overshoot. It's baked into the cake. They're doing it. They're doing it. They planned on doing it, and they're actually doing it. We haven't reduced any of our carbon emissions since the Paris Climate Accord. Maybe some individual countries have, and maybe we did during COVID because we had it crammed down our throat. But as soon as they could come back roaring from that, well, they increased their fossil fuel consumption and their carbon emissions just fast as they could. There is no plan to reduce anything. There's no one stepping forward to reduce anything. Nothing is being reduced. Everything is being forced full throttle. We're going to overshoot. We're going to overshoot the 2.0 goals and everything you've ever heard about that, about how, oh, that 2.0, oh, that's a good goal. We can definitely do that. In the year 2100, and when the year 2100 comes along, if anyone's still alive and they're still even thinking about this topic, then they'll say, well, we didn't do it by 2100, but hey, maybe we'll do it by 2200. That's what they'll do. You know they'll do that. Except they'll all be dead. Howler monkeys are falling out of trees right now in Mexico from the heat. They're falling out of the trees. I'm wearing my glasses because I want to read something here. So he was summarizing at the end of his video, 45 minutes in, he was summarizing his points. And he said that all that they're talking about right now, all the blather, we're going to plant trees, we're going to fertilize the oceans, we're going to do carbon dioxide removal, we're going to do carbon sequestration, we're going to do biochar, we're going to do geoengineering, 50 different ways to do that. We're going to do marine cloud brightening. We're going to make the Arctic more reflective. We're going to refreeze the Arctic. This is just bullshit. Sabina Hassenfelder came out with a video, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. My wife and I are still talking about it. She's so cute. Sabina's great. She came out with the video and she says, this is all bullshit. She's a physicist. She's a working physicist, okay? A scientist. And, she's not working in climate change, but she's a scientist just like I am. And you don't have to be working in climate change and climbing the icebergs and shit like that. You just have to be a scientist and look at what they're doing. And she says, this is all bullshit. All this talk about, green hydrogen and blue hydrogen and, nuclear power and solar reflectors and greening the Amazon and whatever they're talking about they're going to do. All this crap, it's all bullshit. And why are we doing all these bullshit programs? So we don't have to do something more substantial. We'll just keep getting grants and the governments will keep paying us and we'll keep doing these things. And the governments will say, look, see, we're working on it. We're working on mitigation. So keep driving, keep flying, keep traveling to Disneyland. It's going to be all good. Now, that's what we're doing. We're taking them at their word. And when they say we have a solution for meeting 2.0, our Paris Climate Accord goals, our voluntary climate goals of not exceeding 2.0 above baseline, we're right on that. We're going to do that. And look what we're doing. We've got blue hydrogen, we've got green hydrogen, and all this kind of stuff. And you don't even know what those things mean, right? You have to look it up in Wikipedia. But that's what they're going to say. They're going to say, we've got this and we've got that. We've got unicorns and we've got rainbows. And you'll say, that's good. I'm glad they're working on it. And then you'll jump in your car and go to Starbucks to get your latte at the drive-through window. Because that's what they want you to do. So this is the kind of stuff that lights me up. Okay. So this guy wrote at 45 minutes into his video, and you should watch the video. You should watch it from the beginning. It's probably one of the more important presentations you're going to see in your entire life. No joke. No joke. He says at the end, early texts, meaning like in the 70s and the 80s when people were first talking about this, early texts say the quiet part out loud. The argument has morphed form, but the main tendencies remain the same. The economic rationale is still there. Back in the 70s and 80s, they were saying, we can't, this argument about whether climate change is real or not, this was actually resolved in the 70s. Even the oil companies accepted this. They did some of the early research, and then they presented it to the governments, and the governments came back and did their own research, and the EPA got involved, and NASA got involved, and then they were talking about in the 70s and 80s. So what are we going to do? And they said, well, we're not going to do anything. They said that in the 70s and the 80s. They said, we're not going to do anything. And what have they done since? Nothing. So they're true to their word. They were saying in the 70s and the 80s, we have to protect our GDP. We have to protect our profits. We have to protect our job growth and our economic growth. We have to protect the global economy. And so we're not going to do anything. But we're going to make noises like we're going to do something. And maybe someday someone will actually do something. But for now, we're not going to do anything. The economic rationale was in the forefront from the beginning. And they knew that they were choosing the economic rationale. They knew that. They did it explicitly. And everything else was just blather for the children. It's just Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny for you and I. All this shit that they're spewing about all the mitigations and all the technology and all the innovation and all the green and all the, all the alternative, it's all just blather. It's meant to make you think they got a handle on it. They knew day one. They knew from day one. From the 60s, they knew what they were going to do. And they're doing it. And they're being successful. And the Paris Climate Accords, which were voluntary, and all the IPCC reports, and all the talk about technologies and innovation, it's just to keep you on the treadmill until the year 2100. When somebody, I don't know, what, aliens from space, Jesus, somebody is just going to figure it out for us. That's what they want. They don't give a shit. Second point. From buying time in the short term, because it's cheapest to overshoot. It's cheapest to overshoot. It's cheapest to do nothing, go into a hellscape, and then let someone figure it out when it's a hellscape. And why would they figure it out when it's a hellscape? Because it's a hellscape. And in 1960, it wasn't. People were driving Corvette convertibles in 1960. And in 1970, they had hair bands. And in 1980, they had whatever, Woodstock. I don't even know. But it wasn't a hellscape. And they know sometime between now, I mean, we're really advanced now, right? This is the year 2024. Things are looking a little tight. Howler monkeys are falling out of the trees like apples. That's how the Mexicans describe it. Yeah, things are getting a little tight, people. The Dallas-Fort Worth area this morning has 1 million people without electricity. Something happened overnight. It wasn't even forecast. I don't even know what it was. I just saw the headlines. They have no power. 1 million people, Dallas-Fort Worth area, have no power. And all the pictures are, buildings slammed flat and garbage and up in the trees and cars turned over. It's like, what the hell happened in Dallas-Fort Worth? We don't even fucking know. All we know is that 1 million customers are without power. And howler monkeys are dropping out of the trees, dead, like apples. Buying time in the short term because it's cheapest to overshoot. Quote, we will continue in the present and then use carbon dioxide removal in the future to reverse temperatures, and that will be less expensive and more cost efficient. Fuck it. Yeah, I'm a little pissed. Fuck. We've been tooled. We've been used. We've been played like children. Fossil fuel inevitabilism. 46 minutes in. Fossil fuel inevitabilism. It's inevitable. Fossil fuel consumption is inevitable. Inevitable. At least for the medium term. In some cases, much longer. Fuck. Naivete and the role of science, discourse, and ideology in perpetuating this condition. Science and discourse have perpetuated this condition that fossil fuels are inevitable. That's it, people. That's the narrative. That's what you got. That's what they got for you. Fossil fuels are inevitable. And if you look at everything they've done, yeah, overshoot. They're going to overshoot. They're going to land us in a fucking hellscape. And then someone, what, Jesus? I don't know, aliens from Mars? I have no idea who's going to be. Someone is going to think differently about what? Jobs, growth, the global economy. They're going to think differently about all that. Who? The next round of economists who are coming out of the universities today, those people are going to think different. Are you even kidding me? Who is going to be in a position to think differently about this in the year 2050 or the year 2070 when we're in a hellscape? Not just howler monkeys falling out of trees, people falling out of buildings dead. Okay, when we're in a hellscape, some mythical person, some Gandhi, some Jesus is going to think differently about all this, and they're going to save our sorry asses. Are you even serious? Under what pretext would that be the case? They knew in 1960 we were fucked, and they said, "Well, the cheapest thing to do is to do nothing, and when we turn into a hellscape, just fix it then." That was their actual thinking. That's what they were recommending. And Nordhaus got a Nobel Prize for that. And his last point on this slide, it is not innocent to state these things. It's not innocent to state these things. I have said many times, we're not going to solve this problem. We're not going to solve this problem. We're not. I don't think people are good enough. I think from the 60s and the 70s, and even to this day, they're just interested in making money. That's all they can think about. They have a brain bug. Their minds are overthrown, and they can't do it. And they're going to overshoot. They're just going to go into a hellscape and let us figure it out. Or whoever it is, right? It's not going to be me. It's not going to be you. It's going to be somebody who in 2050 says, God damn, this is a hellscape. We got to do something. Okay, well, now they'll do something. I'm telling you right now what you need to do. You need to stop burning fossil fuels. And you need to get yourself into some kind of a community, some kind of a lifeboat. Okay, this Titanic is at the iceberg. And you need to get yourself to the lifeboats. Now, I could talk about what that is, but what is that? This village life, resilience, self-sufficiency, growing your own food, not traveling, not driving, not flying, not having a job. Probably. There aren't going to be jobs. If AI doesn't take care of that, then the collapse of the economy with the hellscape that's coming, that's really already here, the collapse of the economy means you won't have a job. Get yourself to the lifeboats. If you're on the Titanic, you'd be looking for a fucking lifeboat. You're on the Titanic. This planet has hit the iceberg. You are on the Titanic. You need to get yourself to a lifeboat. And that means completely restructuring your life. You're not going to do it. You won't. I'm telling you right now, you need to do that. I'm the guy running up and down the deck of the Titanic telling everybody I see, get to a lifeboat. Get your family, get your kids, get your luggage if you still want it. Get to a lifeboat. Get off of this thing. Will you? I don't know. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what any of us is going to do. I guess we're going to be like the howler monkeys and fall dead out of the trees. Anyway, watch the video. It's linked in the description. Pay attention to it. It's hard. It's hard to swallow. Welcome to my world.